Hey, good evening. It's time for another Mass Transit live stream. Going to be talking tonight. We actually have a pretty wild setup tonight. We have Discord bridged in, so we have people who are on Discord. Their audio is also going to be showing up on the Twitch stream, so that should be fun. I'll try to keep it muted, so that just keep in mind if I see anybody noisy, I will probably mute you. But just want to get started. Today we had the release of MassTransit 6.3.0, so that was pretty cool. I'm going to join the chat for Twitch real quick just in case. I almost forgot that one. It's getting set up here today. Got my second screen going. But yeah, so we've got 6.3.0 has been released. It's available on NuGet. So if we run out to NuGet real quick, we can see that 6.3.0 is there. If it hasn't fully indexed, it should be indexed pretty quickly. Hopefully it will be, but yeah, so that's going to be great. I thought it would be kind of fun to go over some of the release notes, and by release notes I mean the commits to the repo that were part of it, because I don't actually do release notes as like an official document unless it's a big deal like version 6 or version 7. Quite a few bug fixes in this release. We had a couple of validation issues with weird filters. We now have the ability, so when you request, so one of the changes that I think was kind of stealth snuck in, I think with 6.2.5, was that the send endpoint provider and publish endpoint are now scoped in the container. So by default, it's a scoped resource. So if you're in a container that can't live a hybrid lifestyle like Microsoft DI, it will create a scope for you now. So a new scope will get created when you request a send end provider if you configure it that way, which is great because now it just creates a scope and you can use it. But it's still scoped, so it just creates it. Looks like we added an async version of the routing slip builder. There is a request proxy in the routing slip builder. So you can actually do request response to a consumer proxy that will then execute the routing slip. And upon success or failure, it'll either complete or fail the request. So that's kind of a cool thing. Let's see, super exciting stuff here, scope stuff. We had an issue with Azure service, Azure storage for message data. Looks like we added some documentation. One thing on the automatic configuration is, previously, if you had execute or compensate activities that you were configuring with configure endpoints, it would bind the routing slip type to either a topic or exchange. Now those are by default set to false. So if you have exchange bindings in your broker that are binding routing slip to those, routing slips shouldn't be published. So it really isn't a big deal, but it just cleans up some of the bindings on the broker. There was a bug where Amazon SQS was forgetting about queues after a while, and it turns out that was a bad thing for durable queues, so that's been fixed. One of the big new features and there's two of them that are part of this release. The first one is batch publishing. So I did a previous session that I put out there on system threading channels. And with system threading channels, the whole intent was to try to get it so that we were able to buffer sends to the broker and do that as a batch instead of doing them one at a time. And the reason for that is when your broker is remote, it's actually really slow to send messages one at a time. And I would test this locally a lot, and I would think, oh, okay, that was reasonably fast. And of course, then I would test it with like Cloud AMQP or something like that. And I was like, whoa, I mean, the numbers were significantly slower because, the first rule of something is that latency isn't free. And when you take, 0 and turn it into 1 millisecond, that significantly cuts your throughput. So, and it was actually more milliseconds because it's over the network. So I had some benchmarks done on that, and it's a lot better. So now if you're using like Cloud AMQP or even just running your broker over a network, you're going to see significantly faster message sending with both RabbitMQ and Amazon SQS. Azure Service Bus and ActiveMQ haven't been updated yet, but I'm going to look and see if that's going to be possible as well. So that's a nice thing. The system, and that is fully using system threading channels now. So it's super nice API. It's really clean, and it turned out to be a really big performance boost for the benchmarks. When I got into the Amazon SQS transport and started looking at that, I found a lot of things that I didn't like. There was just a lot of code in there that that didn't make sense, and some of it was kind of legacy, and some of it was kind of weird. But it's significantly faster now. Message polling is faster. I optimized the message receive loop, so now with Amazon SQS, your prefetch count is almost always full. Whereas before it would go out and read whatever the prefetch count was, it would go read 50 messages and it would wait until all 50 of those were processed. Now it actually pipelines those messages through using system threading channels. And so now we're able to consistently keep receive busy to where my receive rates were significantly higher using SQS than before. I mean, when we're talking like orders of magnitude, I used to receive like 30 a second, and now I'm in like the 380s. And sending is around 650, 700 a second. So pretty decent for something running on my computer versus, actually running in an EC2 instance or something. So, hey, Albert. Albert in the chat is like, man, skip to the part where this has all been backported to MassTransit 2.0 and .NET Framework 4.5.2. Yeah, no, that hasn't happened. I will cover some of the upcoming things that are slated for MassTransit 7. I'll take a look at that issue real quick just to give you an idea. But MassTransit 7 isn't far off. I mean, I'm shooting for maybe late summer. I don't know. There's no rush, and it might be one of those deals where like there's a 7.0 that just basically drops all the things that I'm planning to drop, and then I start adding on, the capabilities in like a 7.0 or 7.1 release for the 7. Version 7 lineage of MassTransit. So what else was in here? There was some changes for SignalR. So if you've recompiling with SignalR, there were issues with 6.2.5 due to that lifetime scope change for send endpoint provider. So those have been fixed, and I believe now with the new hub configuration, you should be able to pull those in, and it should work. We had a request, and this was one that I thought about, and this kind of goes in the play nice with others category. The issue that this was related to was apparently there are other mediators out there, and when you're trying to use Mediate R with MassTransit, they both have an iMediator interface. So a request was put in to say, hey, could we move this over? And here's the original issue. It was like, hey, I get an ambiguous reference with iMediator. So Jimmy was obviously there first with Mediate R. So I thought, well, you know what? I can just put this into a MassTransit mediator namespace and good to go. It fixes that. Now, if you are using iMediator in your projects, you will need to just add a using for masstransit.mediator, but once you do that, it should be good to go. It's just a simple, clean fix, and it, definitely in the play nice with others kind of area. So, what else did we do? A lot more SQS tuning. That was a fun bit of code. I can't remember what I was doing there. I think it was probably raining outside. I fixed an issue with the outbox. The outbox was actually leaking. There was a case where you could end up with code that was, there was a way to get a message published that didn't get caught by the outbox, so that's been fixed, so that's a good one. One of the questions, one of the things I am wondering, if my publisher is MassTransit 3.5.7, can my consumer be 6.x? Absolutely. MassTransit message, if you're using the JSON message format, or I would say JSON for sure, probably XML. You have full backward compatibility all the way back to like even 2.0. So even if you're in a 2.x, like if you're in like 2.10.2 and .NET 4.5.2, you should be able to completely interoperate with 6.x services. The JSON format hasn't changed at all. In version 7, I am looking at if it's going to be possible to move to system.text.json by default and throw Newtonsoft off in a separate package. I don't know for sure that that's going to work, but from everything I've read, it should, because they have JSON converters. I mean, I think they just ported the library over, so it should work. But I'm going to try to find out, because there might be edge cases with the way I do interface deserialization. But you never know, so we'll find out. I will point out, if you're on the live stream and joining us, you can join the Discord. If you have the Twitch stream, you should be able to at least see one of the Discord addresses out there. But if you do join the Discord in the live QA channel, it's a voice channel that you're more than welcome to come in and ask questions live. If we have some time at the end, I'll leave time for questions, because there is no time limit. I'm just going through kind of some of the stuff that's in here. So there were a few other minor fixes. You can now specify settings on the queues. So let me go into the code here. And so, like, if I have an Amazon SQS receive endpoint configurator, what do we have here? I think it's in here. Is it in the queue endpoint configurator? It's somewhere. Maybe it's in here. I can't remember for sure where it went. What was it called? Oh no, it's in send topology. That's right. So within any of the topologies, you are now able to specify configure error settings and configure dead letter settings. And what that does is it just gives you a delegate. You can basically just supply an action that's called when an error queue or a dead letter queue is created, and that will allow you to apply some changes to it. Like if you want to say that the time to live is shorter, or that you want the queue to have a certain property, basically anything. And that's applying to all transports, so it works for Amazon, Rabbit, ActiveMQ, all of them. And you can just specify that in the send topology. So if you go into, I bet if I look, these are probably never called. Oh, by the way, I am running a new thing in Writer called Presentation Assistant. So I had a request. They were like, man, your keyboard skills are on point, but I need to know what keys you're using, because I want to be able to do some of the things that I see in the navigation of code. So I've installed this thing called Presentation Assistant. It makes it so that when I press a key, you'll see that I did a navigate derived symbols, and it'll show you the keystrokes that I used to get that. So pretty slick. I thought it was pretty cool. And I used to have a program that did this way back in the day that was like WinKey something, or that would show you the keys that were done. Obviously, I'm not on Windows anymore, but this is a cool little plugin for Writer called, I believe it's called Presentation Assistant. Yeah, Presentation Assistant by Nikolay Chesnikov. But yeah, super great, and you can configure the appearance and everything, so really cool. Thought that'd be super helpful, and hopefully that helps people find some keystrokes. Let me see, is there any other minor things in here? There's been some dependency injection setup, cleanup. Yeah, that's super exciting. So I want to go into the kind of the big new feature at this point, because we're 15 minutes in, and I've kind of covered the high points, a lot of bug fixes. The NuGets are out there. I don't know what it is, and it's like, it seems like whenever somebody asks for something, 10 other people ask for it. Like when you're in the grocery store and you're looking at like pickles or some random thing, and it's a completely empty aisle, and you're by yourself, you're looking at, all of a sudden 8 other people have to look at something exactly in front of what you're looking at, and it's like, dude, this is my aisle. I was here first. So it's like everybody sees you looking at it, so it must be incredibly amazing, and they just want to look at whatever you're looking at. I don't understand it. So people started asking questions like, well, how do I configure 2 buses? I have a remote bus, and I have a local, or I have a remote RabbitMQ and a local RabbitMQ, and I need to be able to communicate with both of them. Or I need to be able to do this part of my application on RabbitMQ to talk to this system, but I need SQS to talk to this other system. And yeah, I mean, you can create multiple buses. I wouldn't do it unless you absolutely have to. I mean, this is like the 1%ers that need to be able to talk to 2 different systems. But the question came up enough, and it was, and of course, everybody. If you look at the download stats, I mean, everybody's using Microsoft dependency injection now. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I continue to question why I support all the libraries that I do, and I am dropping some in version 7 because they just work with MSDI, so there isn't any point to have a special version of it. It's just less code to maintain. But it seems like anybody doing applications recently, especially with .NET Core, they're all using MSDI. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's insane. It's orders of magnitude higher of the people that download the MSDI package than they do any of the other container integration packages. And I would almost bet that the people using like AutoFac or Structure Map at this point are on .NET Framework on Windows running, existing enterprise applications. The metrics and analytics we get just don't show us a lot of detail, but they do tell us what NuGet clients are being used. So if I go and look at the different NuGet clients, I can kind of get a perspective of what's being downloaded. So it's one of those things that, as everybody just recognizes that, to use an Apple term, they've been Sherlocked by Microsoft. It's basically MSDI is so well integrated with everything else that the other containers have to match those capabilities in addition to providing all their own cool stuff. So it's just one of those races. It's like, why do you win? It's like Entity Framework Core versus in Hibernate. Both are still super strong frameworks. One of them has become super strong, and the Hibernate guys are still doing great work. But it's like it's a constant race of, are you really just supporting it because you're comfortable with it, or is it really that much better? So again, everybody has their opinions. I was an early user of Hibernate and still really like it because I just understand how it works out of the box. But anyway, enough about that. So this question kept coming up of how do we run multiple buses, and container configuration is a pain. I mean, if you don't configure things right, it's one of the reasons the .add MassTransit extension was created for all the containers, is because so many people would configure their containers wrong. It was time to like fully embrace them without requiring them. So one of the big new features in 6.3.0 is MultiBus. Now, MultiBus is a way to automatically, by design, configure multiple bus instances in a container. And it does this through creating an interface that you actually store with that you inherit from iBus, so that I can differentiate between the different buses. Because if we just had multiple instances of iBus in the container, you'd never get it right. And we looked at a couple approaches for this. One was recommended to create an iBus of T, where I could put a generic argument on and basically key off that. And I wasn't super thrilled about that. I mean, I originally pulled that in and we did that first pass, and then I thought, no, and then I had a good long chat with Drew, and we started thinking about the individual atoms and what made the most sense and like how you could really distill it down to being valuable. And then we came up with just, okay, well, why don't they just create their own iBus something? So we put it through some code, and it turns out that it was super clean, eliminated a lot of generic noise, which people really kind of freak out about. And so that's where we ended up. So just to kind of go over some of the things that are registered in a container when you use add MassTransit. So the add MassTransit configuration you see here actually does a whole bunch to the container. It stores in the container an iBus control, which is used to start and stop the container, or to start and stop the bus. It registers iBus, which is kind of I need to do something with the bus, and I'm a program.cs, or I'm just trying to do something. And so it's a singleton. You can get to it from anywhere. You don't need a scope, and you can use it to publish or send on the bus. And it starts a new conversation. I like to think of that differentiation, and that's a way to describe it, is when you're using iBus, you're starting a new conversation. If you're in a consumer, however, or one of your consumer's dependencies, you don't want to use iBus because you aren't starting a new conversation. You're consuming a message, and anything you do from that point on is a continuation of that conversation. So for that, we register iSend endpoint provider, iPublish endpoint, iClient factory, which is used to create the iRequest clients, which are scoped, and then consume context. So when you're consuming in a message, you should always publish or send with consume context. It's what you should use. It basically has iPublish endpoint and iSend endpoint provider on it. And the way the container is configured by MassTransit is if you're in a consumer and you try to resolve iSend endpoint provider from your consumer or one of your consumer's dependencies, it basically just gets consume context. So if you look in the object graph, you see it's basically just feeding it back to consume context because it wants your dependencies to depend upon the least complete interface that they need, such as just I want to send with a send endpoint provider, or I just need to publish. And then those dependencies don't have to depend on consume context. But it all rolls up back to the same thing, basically. So with that in mind, having two buses configured in the container creates an issue because like starting and stopping and the iBus, and how do I get send endpoint provider? Which bus do I get? Which bus do I pull it from if I don't have a consume context? And so a lot of these weird questions came up. And the approach that was taken is that you can have your own iBus interface that inherits from iBus, and you can call add MassTransit and just say, I want to configure my second bus, and anything within this add MassTransit configuration block is only tied to that bus instance. So, and I can't spell omitted, that's awesome. The difference is now we take that iSecond bus identifier and we use that to register the other components in here. And so these things, this is basically what happens. It's like iBus control no longer gets registered. We actually have a bus registry in the container that is used, and I'll show how that works. We don't register iBus because obviously it would be a duplicate one, and we don't want to mess with IEnumerable /where name and all that other stuff because that's just horrible. iSecond bus is registered as singleton because that's your interface, that's your bus. And if you want to use that in a consumer, you can, because you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to send to this bus. The rest of this stuff, send endpoint provider, publish endpoint, it will only resolve if there's a consume context to the bus that you're on. So your dependencies don't have to change. If your consumer was on iBus and received a message, that consume context and the iSend endpoint providers would go back to that iBus. If you were consuming a message on iSecond bus, iSend endpoint provider would be for iSecond bus. So, and I'll show that. I'll do a little quick code thing here to kind of show through some of that. There are some things that are probably not going to work on across buses, because remember, when you use a bus, you're starting a new conversation. So if your consumer takes a dependency on iSecond bus and is receiving on iBus, if it does a publish to that iSecond bus, that's a new conversation. It isn't mapping that over now. I have kind of a backlog item of like, it would be nice if I could do that within a consumer to transfer like the IDs and everything. So I'm probably going to get that done eventually, but I wanted to get this out and get some miles on it and get some feedback so that we can kind of refine it and iterate as we go forward. So the docs are out there. You can read those. I could create a real quick sample on this just to kind of see what we could come up with. Let's do a ASP.NET Core web application so that we have all the tasty goodies of ASP.NET in there already. We'll just put this in the garbage file, because what's a garbage file have in it? Garbage, yeah. MultiBus app. That was totally a hacker's reference, yes. So Twitch now has, with Twitch Prime, you can actually start watch parties with anything that's on Amazon Prime. So it's like but Hackers isn't on Amazon Prime, so it's like we could totally have like a post-watch, party, but yeah, not gonna happen. Sorry, would have been fun, but yeah. But I thought that's cool. You can tell that everybody's trying to do these virtual social experiences and watching a movie together on Amazon Prime, because like Netflix has there's like a Chrome plugin where you can have like a Netflix party where everybody can synchronize their Netflix and watch the same movie. So obviously, Amazon had to compete. I've actually seen a lot of people have Discord parties where they just use the screen share and stream the movie, and then they all sit in Discord and chat. So I thought that was kind of cool too, but fun times. So I created a new MultiBus app here, and what I want to show is how I would create two buses. So I'm going to make sure that I have RabbitMQ running. I don't know if I do or not. But I'm probably going to just start RabbitMQ and ActiveMQ. I think I have both of those local. I'll just go ahead and start those up. Oh, geez. Brew, services, start, RabbitMQ. I forget that brew isn't the most smartest thing. I would normally do these in Docker, but I'm just kind of feeling lazy today. And I know these work. Yes, I think they do. So I'm going to go and add references to all the latest MassTransit packages. MassTransit. Let's see, let's start with RabbitMQ, since that's always one of my favorites. And I'm also going to pull in the ASP.NET Core integration package, so I get MSDI as well. Alrighty. And this is a .NET 3.1 ASP.NET project that I'm creating. So we'll go to the startup. We will come in here. We will do services.add MassTransit. Yep. And this will be the same as we always see. We'll probably have to create a quick consumer, but that's okay. We can do that. But we're going to call add bus. And this is one of the changes that's in this version is this is now a context. It used to just be provider. And for most people, this will clean compile. It'll just have the wrong name. If you were doing weird things with this argument, though, you might have to change a signature to be the iRegistration context of iService But otherwise, it should just compile. If it gives you a simple error, it's an easy cleanup. But that's why it went to 6.3.0 instead of 6.2.6 is because I figured it's annoying, but it's not like end of the world version change. So we'll say bus.factory.create using RabbitMQ. And we will configure our bus. We will say, we don't need a host, we're just going to use localhost. We will do configure endpoints with the context, and that's the one place that we would normally pass the context. So we will do that. Dang it, let's forget about that. I had to install 2.2.1.2 something of Rider. And I had to uninstall the JetBrains toolbox because that thing was just driving me bonkers. So I just went straight for a clean Rider install. I'm going to create a quick consumer really quick, just to kind of show that I am registering a consumer here. We'll create that. We're going to make it consumer simple message. I don't know, we'll just create something. We'll implement our consumer, which we're just going to, on the constructor, this is what we're going to show here, is we will take in an iLogger so we can log simple consumer. And then we will just log debug consumed. And we will return task.completed task. Okay, so we have a simple consumer in here. We're going to configure our add MassTransit. We also have to call services.add MassTransit hosted service. What else did I forget? I'm sure I forgot something else. Yeah, I forgot one more thing. So we need to make this a statement. Config.add health checks. Oh, use health checks. So that was one other thing that was changed now is MassTransit has its own health check types now. So when you check, you can add health checks without actually being in ASP.NET, and you can request the health check through the container. I think it's registered as iBus Health. And you can run a health check against the bus to see if it's healthy. So now you don't actually have to be in an ASP.NET project to do that. The ASP.NET health checks for MassTransit will use that built-in health check. So it kind of makes it kind of nice. Because some people had been trying to create their own endpoint observers, and this just, you can query it, and if you get the status of healthy, you know the bus is healthy. If it's unhealthy, you'll know why, and it could be that it's not connected to the broker, stuff like that. The health checks are multi-bus compatible, so if you have multiple buses, you will get multiple health checks registered within ASP.NET or from the bus, so that makes it easy as well. And we'll show that when we configure the health checks in here. To do that, I think I actually have to do like services.add health check. Oh wait, MassTransit will call that for you since I'm adding the health check there and I'm using the hosted service. The only thing I have to do is I have to do like endpoints.map health checks, or what is it, map health checks? Yeah. This is where I'm going to actually go out and cut and paste. Because I always forget this stuff. Oops. So I'm going to go grab the add map health checks endpoints, because I always forget that. I'm also going to copy over my little cool helper that I use for writing the JSON out. Let's see here, did I put this in the right class? Yeah, I did. Okay, come on, resolve your stuff. Do your thing. Okay. And that just makes it so that when we render the health checks, they look pretty and have a nice little JSON output when we hit the browser. So I have a bus, it's talking to RabbitMQ, it's just using localhost by default, so I don't need to configure the host. I'm configuring the endpoints, I've added a consumer called simple consumer. Now, let's go out and actually run this. Man, my computer like super slow today. I don't know what's going on. It's nutso. It's never this slow. So I'm in garbage still, and what's this one called? MultiBus. MultiBus.app. So if I do .NET.run, yes, I'm actually going to look and see what's eating every single bit of CPU off my computer. While I wait for the .NET run to start up. Huh, okay, it's just OBS, I guess. I guess OBS is busy today, so the streaming is eating some CPU today. It looks like our app is up and running. Let's create a go to localhost and verify our health. We got redirected to the SSL. Okay, so it looks like our bus is healthy. We're connected to RabbitMQ. We have 2 endpoints. One change that was made to MassTransit quite a while ago is that we don't start the default bus endpoint by default anymore. So you'll notice that the input address of the bus endpoint actually is ready, but it now shows you that it's not started. And the reason it does that is because people get really annoyed by those buses filling up, especially if they aren't using request response. But what will happen is if you connect a request client to it, before it sends the request, it will actually start up that endpoint so that when the response comes back, it'll be able to receive it. The bus is started. It was started by the hosted service, but that particular receive endpoint, it doesn't start, which means it doesn't create the queue. So just kind of a little nicety so that you don't have those queues created unless you're actually using them. So we will stop that. Now with the multi-bus feature, so now I have one bus. I can't add another one. If I actually try to do it again, if I say services.add MassTransit again, and I act like I want to create another one, and I say, okay, well, I'm going to call x.addBus, and let's just say it's context bus.factory.create using in memory. if I try to create this and I go out and try to run, it should give me an error. Yeah, see, I'm getting an error. It says, hey, configuration exception. Add MassTransit was already called and only may be called once per container. To configure additional bus instances, refer to the documentation, and it has a link to the MultiBus page, which is obviously a new error statement. So let's look at how we would do the MultiBus. MultiBus. Yes, fifth element is a thing. So as we said in the docs, I need to create and let's just call this the ActiveMQ bus, because why not, right? We'll call this iBus. And now we will come out here and we will find that second add MassTransit, and we are going to call this add MassTransit iActiveMQ bus. Now, of course, it's going to give me an error initially because I haven't included the right namespace. So I will import the missing reference using Rider, but it's within the MultiBus namespace, MassTransit.multibus. So all you have to do is add that at the top. And the reason I put that in a different namespace is because I really don't want people to use it. I mean, I don't want people to grab for it like all of a sudden they think every bus they create is like gonna have to have, a MultiBus in it. So it's not all about the MultiBus. Now we're gonna do this. We're gonna have to actually go out to NuGet and get the ActiveMQ transport. So we'll add that package in. And now we will say configure using ActiveMQ. And I don't think I need to specify the host here because I think by default it will pick up my local broker. But I will say configure endpoints with context, and I will also say use health check. The nice thing about this is it also shows me that I have my auto-created name of simple for my simple consumer with my simple message. So that's a nice thing about the health, is it'll actually show you kind of a quick look at what's running within the bus. Super nice. Let's go ahead and create another consumer, and let's call this the not so simple consumer. And we're going to call this the complex message, which is just going to be a little more complex than the simple message. It's going to have a string of value. It's pretty complex. Okay, consumed complex message. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to go up and we're going to add the consumer there. Except this is going to be our complex consumer. Oh, no, it's not. It's my not so simple consumer. Right on. Okay, so we got that. Looks like we compiled. We should be fine. What happens if we run it? So now we should have two buses. It started and it didn't crash, so that's a good sign. Let's go look at our health check. Oh, look at this. We have iBus, we have iActiveMQ bus. Both are healthy, both are ready. One is connected to my local ActiveMQ. The other one is connected to RabbitMQ. I have an input address of bleh, which is not started. I have an input address of not so simple for my not so simple consumer, and that's rocking and rolling. Awesome. So now we have two buses running in the same process. How cool is that? It's pretty cool. Now, let's just for funsies say that I want to make it so that whenever I check the weather, because I don't even know what else to do on this thing. Let's say that whenever I want to check the weather, I want to publish a message on the regular bus. So I'm going to just say I want to publish a message on the bus, violating my first rule of climate control. But, it's all for the explicits. And when we do a get on here, we will just do a await bus.publish new simple message. We'll make that async. All right. There, now we have a publisher without a whole lot of pain. And that's going to publish our simple message to our simple consumer. But now let's make it so that when our simple consumer gets a simple message, it publishes to the ActiveMQ broker, because why not, right? That sounds like a good old time. So now we're going to make this consumer depend upon ActiveMQBus, which is a really annoying name. Let's rename that to like iOtherBus, because that sounds way cooler. And then we'll have OtherBus that we'll have. And here we will await OtherBus.publish, except we need an underscore. My autocomplete time is like horrendously slow, but it doesn't like publish new complex message. Complex message. Oh wow, I like added a namespace just by doing that. That's awesome. And we will assign value equal to datetime dot now dot toString. Sure, sounds great. Okay, great. You know what? Value equals Frank. Frank is not going to care what culture he comes from. We can get rid of that since we're actually an async method now. So now we're taking a dependency within our consumer on iOtherBus, and we're going to call OtherBus.publish and see what happens. So now when we save it out, we're going to run it here. Did we do a log in our complex? Oh, we totally did. So we're going to get to see this once we go hit the controller endpoint. We're fired up. This is running. Let's go to localhost / 5001. We're not going to go to Swagger. We're going to go to, what is it, weather something? Shoot, I don't know. Weather forecast? Is that what the default controller is? Weather forecast. Oh, there it is. Boom. Hey, we should have some messages, maybe. Oh, no, we don't have messages. Sorry. But we have messages. I guarantee we had messages. We need to go to our app settings.json and put MassTransit and put debug. Or default level, let's just make the, well, I don't want to make the default level debug, do I? Sounds like kind of annoying. What's my logger type? What's my namespace here? MultiBus app. So if I go to app settings and I go to, yeah, we'll just make this debug. What the hell? Not that complicated. It's going to be a couple extra lines for this case. Okay, maybe more than a couple extra lines, but now you're going to get to see all of the MassTransit code, you know, of where it configures the endpoint simple, configures endpoint not so simple, starting bus instances, iBus, iOtherBus, that's the hosted service. It now uses the registry to find all the buses, starts RabbitMQ, starts ActiveMQ. They're started at the same time. They start concurrently. They all run up. I get all my exchanges declared. I get all of my queues and topics and consumers in ActiveMQ, which is really cool to see. I come back out here and I hit refresh, and I can see that I sent a message to the MultiBus app simple message. So that was my publish. I did a receive, but you know, it's already, because the consumer is already sending to ActiveMQ, it's creating the virtual topic MultiBus, because that's the way publish works in ActiveMQ. ActiveMQ, RabbitMQ finished its receive, ActiveMQ finished its receive. Everything's great. It like totally worked. So that's all good. I don't think it wrote its debug out because that isn't a MassTransit namespace. That's MultiBus app. So yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the MultiBus. That's how it works, how you can write between two different buses. It is documented on the website, which, you know, I wrote that last night. This feature is super new. Actually, I think I wrote the docs 2 nights ago. The feature is super new. It was just created within the last 3 or 4 days, which why not release it, right? Yeah, so I think that's a majority of the changes in 6.3, the two new features that are kind of the big ones. Um, yeah, so good stuff. Like it. Um, doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of questions in the chat or on Discord, so that's all right. Oh, wait, hold on. What do we got here? Nope. Guess that was something else. My eyeballs are deceiving me. Oh, I did say I was going to take one more quick peek. If we look at the issues within MassTransit, there's an upcoming MassTransit version 7 changes. I was just going to kind of cover this real quick of things that are coming up. With version 7, the things that are definitely going to happen. The old host is going to go away, so masstransit.host and masstransit.host.quartz and all the old top shelf-based services are going to go away. They've already been replaced with versions that run on the MassTransit platform, so there's already a Quartz service out there that runs on Docker using the new MassTransit platform. That's going to be the go-forward solution, and MassTransit hosts and those packages will go away, and all those dependencies will be gone. The .host methods in the bus, if you're going to actually configure the host, will no longer return an iHost or an iRabbitMQ host or any of that. That's all an internal concern of the bus. Since there's only one bus, one host, there isn't any reason to access the host, so that's going to go away. MassTransit Reactive has 2 classes in it. Come on, seriously, I'm just going to put those in a documentation file for someone who still might be using that. The download metrics show that nobody's using it, so it's not worth keeping around. There are a couple storage engine and container Saga repository. So when I redid the Saga rewrite, there's only one Saga repository class now. So all of the container specific Saga repositories, which right now just internally create Saga repository, all those are going to be gone. I'm just going to delete them. They're going to be history. The Sagas are meant to be created using a Saga repository and passing in the appropriate repository context factories and stuff like that. So that's going to all disappear. It shouldn't affect, it's the only thing it's going to affect is if people were using like AutoFac Saga repository. You just need to use Saga repository and setting it up with the AutoFac. It's just describing how to configure it in AutoFac will be part of the upgrade docs. It's extremely likely and almost 100% positive that it's going to be .NET Standard 2.0 only. So it'll still work with 4.6.1 because 2.0 is compatible with 4.6.1. But I won't be building the actual 4.6.1 packages anymore. They'll just be releasing the net standard packages. And that's really more of a workflow thing. It eliminates the need for mono and all of that stuff. And with .NET 5 releasing in November of this year, I don't see any reason of still supporting multiple frameworks in addition to .NET 5. So it makes sense to kind of drop that. It'll still work with 4.6.1, like I said. It's just when you install it, the compiler will figure it out. So there's a lot of packages that are going that way. It also makes my Mac workflow easier because I don't have to have mono anymore. Plus, I can move the build to GitHub Actions and do all the builds in Docker on Ubuntu. So it's going to be nice. Ninject and Unity, they're gone. I'm sorry, MSDI is there and Ninject hasn't been updated in 3 years, so there's no reason to keep that around. I can't imagine anybody still using it. I will be upgrading to the RabbitMQ v6 client. It has some breaking changes in it, so I think it's going to be worth doing that as a larger step. As I mentioned, systemtext.json is a big possibility. I'll still have Newtonsoft for edge cases where people were doing stuff with their message serialization. But I'm thinking of making system.text.json default because it uses system.memory and it's fully optimized. And I mean, let's face it, Newtonsoft is dead because the guy works at Microsoft and they just released system.text.json. So let's just be realistic about what's going to get updated. I'm 50-50 on turnout. I know some people use it. It isn't well supported. It doesn't behave the way a lot of people expect it to. So I'm 50-50 on deleting this, or at least just marking it as like, don't ask me questions on it because I'm not going to support it. So in my opinion, that means delete it. But it does fit a couple of use cases for people. I don't know. If turnout is like absolutely important to you, let me know, because otherwise I'm probably just going to nuke it because I'm tired of supporting it. I last modified the code in 2015 when I wrote it. So that gives you any idea. Like I said, I'm considering dropping some of the DI packages because they just don't make sense. I mean, structure map is definitely people using net framework. Um, Lamar works with the MSDI configuration methods, so you can actually configure it with the extensions dependency injection package. So I don't see a point of having duplicity there. But like Windsor and AutoFac, there's enough strong reasons to keep that, especially people who are heavy on .NET Framework. And people, I think, will still have, people still have products that are running on .NET Framework, so there's no reason to completely drop those. I think they're pretty widely used. So, and we'll see. And it's just about eliminating projects so that I can make room for other stuff. So that's just kind of a brief highlights. If there's anything that's major, one of the questions that comes up, what about Kafka support? Well, you technically, using Mediator, can send messages into the bus now through Kafka. And now that you can have Mediator and a second multi-bus next to it to do both Mediator and RabbitMQ in the same process, and you can feed Kafka messages into it. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to come up with a better story for it. I do have a sample in the blog post that shows how to push from the Confluent Kafka client into MassTransit using Mediator. And now that Mediator can take a dependency on a bus and actually publish messages to RabbitMQ, I think it's a good story. But there's always the option that, some sort of concept of being able to pull other sources of traffic into the bus. Well, and now it's multi-bus. So, I mean, it's like, as these things sort of come together, how does that fit together? And I'm sure I could come up with a lot of public transportation terminology, such as depots and hubs and transfers and all sorts of stuff to, completely overload the jargon based on public transportation. So, request for a session on how to do Kafka to MT. Yeah, I could definitely put that on the list of just showing how you can read from Confluent into Mediator and like send commands out to RabbitMQ or something. That might actually be kind of fun. So I'll think about doing something on that. That's about all I have for tonight. No other questions seem to be popping up. So kick the tires on MassTransit 6.3. If there's issues, there'll be a 6.3.1. You know how this works. Nobody's forcing you to update, but staying current is always smart. I wouldn't fall behind on versions too far because you never know what would change. I mean, heaven forbid you were still on like version 2.10.2 or something crazy like that hasn't been updated in 6 years. So, and that's all for you, Albert. I'm looking right at you, buddy. All right, well, thanks for joining tonight. Hopefully got some good information. Kick the tires, give me some feedback, join the Discord, let us know how it's working for you. If you do find issues, reproducible cases really help. I've had a lot of people report things lately, and I've been pretty quick to answer because, let's face it, there isn't a whole lot else to do right now. Everything's closed, and we're not supposed to go outside still, despite, what some people think is, clean air. So I've definitely been answering a lot of questions and spending a lot of time trying to reproduce things that aren't really issues. So, if you do run into an issue, try to reproduce it in isolation. Make sure it's not a configuration. If you aren't logging through iLogger Factory, log. The debug logs will tell you everything MassTransit does. As you can see, every queue creation, every exchange name bound. I created a test app this morning to try to reproduce an issue and could never reproduce it. I had all the transports going at once. I was talking to everything in one project. Everything was starting up and requesting and responding to each other. So it's, there's definitely no issues there. That is one thing that I think might be kind of cute to show real quick before I sign off. With the simple consumer with the iOther bus, so the way request clients work is they're going to try to bind to one of the buses. So if I add a request client in here, it should bind to the bus that it's configured to. Because the way, and I mean, I could go under the covers on this a little bit, and I might as well because, I'm going to because I think it's cool. So with the service collection, the way MultiBus works is it actually uses what I call a bind. So it basically is, in functional programming, it's called type amplification, but basically I'm assigning a key with a variable, so kind of storing it as like a tuple, but not a tuple. But when you configure a multi-bus where you have a type of T-bus, what it's actually doing is it's actually using this bind type that I created to actually store a generic or an amplified type in the container where everything that it registers is tied to that bind of T-bus, but the T-bus actually isn't stored in the container. So it's like, I want to bind iBus, I send endpoint, I publish endpoint. So all of these are available, and then all of the dependencies on them we'll call get required service of bind T-bus of bus health. And so what that does is it actually makes it so that I can access each of the individual bus types components through that registration. So it's pretty cool. It was one of those things that when we were talking about the interfaces is how do we identify them without shoving generics into the developer's face? And this keeps the generics buried in the container. It keeps it very clean. And I mean, this was like the piece of technology that really makes this work and work well. It was, you know, like I said, Drew and I were talking through all this design. He was like, how could you like store a tuple in there? And I was like, well, I don't want to store a tuple. But that got me thinking, and then I started thinking about functional programming and monads and amplified types and how to key them, and I was just like, okay, I could probably make this work. And so this worked great with the container. I think it's a pretty solid implementation. I looked at how HTTP Client Factory did its registration because it has a typed-based registration, and it gave me some ideas, but it wasn't really where I wanted it to be because it was a little different. But definitely understanding how to use MSDI, go look at what the ASP.NET team has done undocumented, because like if you look at how they're doing things with the container, they really have a lot of shortcuts and a lot of things to configure it to make it work. And again, it's one of those things that because there's so much effort being put into that around the .NET stack, and because now like even the MassTransit platform runs on ASP.NET Core, it's just there's no reason to use anything else because just the edge cases will eat you. And plus, I mean, out of the box .NET new MSDI is there. So I mean, it's just such a strong statement. It's like it's no wonder that everything uses it. So. There was one other thing that I just thought I was going to show. Oh, right. So the way I've created this in my project is I just created the interface, and I wanted to kind of be clear on this for the iOtherBus. I didn't have to create a defined type because MassTransit, just like it does with interface-based messages, it has its own proxy in the background. So it creates a proxy for your bus and initializes all the properties, property redirection, and all that stuff for you. If you want to create your own type, you can, and there's one reason why you would want to do that, and this is the only reason I can think of. The only reason I could think of is that you would want to put some other dependencies with it. So to do this, you have to actually implement inherit from bus instance, and the framework will actually force this on you. And that's because the bus control is passed to this instance type that's in the background. But like I said, the only reason you would ever want to do this is for this one capability right here. And let's say you have some other dependency. You want to be able to take a dependency on something and store that with your bus. So you might like have a publish iBus. You would never do this. I'm not even going to do that because that's going to be so annoying. But if you had components that you wanted to store with your bus and have those resolved from the container, you could put your other container dependencies in it. Let's just do a logger because it's annoying. And now because I don't want people to think you can log with the bus. Just don't even use this. It's there. You could put dependencies on there if you wanted to throw some baggage around with the bus. I'm sure people will abuse it because it does resolve it from the container, and it uses the only reason that that's kind of cool is because what it does is it will actually create the object from the container, but it passes the bus control in without adding it to the container. Because again, if you look under the covers of how MSDI works, it has a lot of cool capabilities that just aren't in the public surface API. So anyway, that works and it's cool. And it's used by HTTP client and everything, so I'm fairly sure it's going to stick around. It isn't one of those things that's just going to change in version 3.2. So if you were going to do that though, and it tells you in the docs how to do it, like I said, just let me build the proxy for you and you don't have to worry about it, and we'll be good. So yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm done. So check out 6.3. I'm really going to log off this time because I think I've had enough, and appreciate you spending the time. Thanks for watching, and oh yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Just kidding. All right, dorky time over. Catch you later. Bye.